It's time for our financial focus, if you will. Let's bring in our money men, business and market analyst and NewsMax contributor, Seth Denson, also America's accountant, accounting professor at Montclair State University, Dan Geltrude. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, good morning, Rachel.
All right, let's talk oil prices. They've hit a new multi-year high as OPEC is refusing President Biden's request to increase production, which is big news for anyone who, let's say, drives a car or heats a house. So, Dan, how exactly is this going to affect American consumers?
Well, it's much more than our driving habits or having to heat our homes for the winter. This is classic economics in terms of supply and demand. Right now, there is a little supply or less supply, and there's certainly great demand. And when we have oil prices going up as they are right now, inflation is going to go with it. And why is that? Is because we use oil products in everything. So as we see this trend continue, we are going to see the cost of everything moving up. Now, as far as Joe Biden asking OPEC to increase production, and they, of course, politely said, thanks, but no thanks, why would you blame them? They're not our friends. Joe Biden and this administration certainly vilifies anything related to fossil fuels. He would love to put OPEC out of business. So when he requests production to be increased, why would they do it? It goes back to bad policy to rely upon foreign-produced oil.
Seth, you talk about that supply and demand a bit, so much so to call OPEC, which controls 50% of the world's oil supply, a cartel. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, what's the definition of a cartel? It's an organization of suppliers or manufacturers that is intentionally trying to keep the price of things high. And that's effectively what you have here. Dan's right. I mean, the countries that make up OPEC Plus, we're talking about countries like Venezuela, Iran, Iraq, Russia. I don't think that they necessarily want the U.S. to be successful. And so as we think about it, these folks control 50% of the world's supply, but 90% of the overall reserves. They effectively have their thumb on the oil production supply. And unfortunately, under this administration, you've got the ending of the Keystone Pipeline. You have new land leases that have been denied. This is a struggle. We were energy independent under Trump. We're no longer under Biden.
Well, let's keep that going. After ending the Keystone Pipeline and suspending oil and gas leasing, and now this, Dan, how many more mistakes can the American people afford?
Well, as far as affording these types of mistakes, they hurt. And as far as affordability goes, things are going to become more expensive as we rely upon foreign oil. I mean, what Seth just said right there is spot on. We are becoming energy dependent once again, which we were not during the Trump administration, on these foreign countries. It's not a great place for us to be. And I think people are going to get intolerant of inflation because inflation is a tax that impacts everyone. And in spite of the fact that we're seeing wage inflation, meaning people are making more money, the cost of inflation is far outpacing that. So what's happening is people are falling behind in terms of their buying power. So unless we're going to change course, which means the United States is going to start pumping oil and we're going to be opening refineries and increasing production across the board, we're in for some economic struggles here.
Seth, do you think these surges are due to COVID, the world economy opening back up, or just strictly decision making here?
Yeah, I think it's a number of things, Rachel, and you bring up a great point. Obviously, the world opening back up is going to increase supply requirements. Overall, if we go into normal years pre-COVID, we did see supply increasing on average about 17% over the last decade. So, you know, we consistently as a globe utilize more oil. But part of the pandemic was we shut off oil supplies, and OPEC, in an attempt to raise prices, cut supply by 7 million barrels. And as such, I mean, that raised the price, reduces supply. Inflation impacts this as well. And so, you know, this combined with the Biden policies on oil production, I think is why we're where we are.
All right, Seth Denson, Dan Geltrude, thank you as always for joining us.
Thanks, Rachel.
All right, as we head to break.